February the 2nd, 2017 has now been called to order. We will have the invocation by Mr. Brame, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, please.
Let's pray. Father God, we just love you. We thank you for this day. Just thank you for your many blessings that you lay upon our lives each day, Father. We just ask tonight that you be with us as we make the decisions for the parish, the decisions we make please you, Father. We ask that you just be with us during the week and just watch over and protect us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Andrepont?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Vice President Brame?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnum?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Present.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Latour?
Here.
Ms. Mayo?
Here.
Mr. McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmie? Here. Mr. White?
Here.
And President Gidget.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Just a few housekeeping items. For those of you that have cell phones, we would ask that you would put those on silence or either vibrate. And if anybody have a blue slip that would like to speak on any of the items tonight, we would ask that you would get those to Ms. Jessica right up front, and we'll be more than happy to make sure that you're heard. Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to item number 4. Presentation of retirement certificate to Mr. Robert V. Robin Morton, Executive Director of E911, in recognition of 25 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Calcasieu Parish. At this time, I would ask that Mr. Dick Grimillon come forward, please, followed with Mr. Brian Beam.
Thank you, Mr. President and jurors. We're here tonight to congratulate Robin on a long career of public service. He's been with 911 25 years, but he was also with Lake Charles Police Department 18 years before that, so if my math's correct, he really has 43 years in public safety service. Robin at Lake Charles PD held just about every job you could have over there: K-9 handler, homicide investigator, internal affairs, and patrol supervisor. He came to the parish service in 1991 as the director of the 911 communication district. And he's had a lot of accomplishments, but I want to touch on a few that really directly affect the police jury and parish operations. One of the first things he did was establish a 911 center as mutual aid dispatch headquarters. These are things that they don't have to do, but they do it as a service. They have the excellent staff to do it. But what that does is facilitate communications between all of our public safety agencies in the parish. You won't find that in a lot of parishes or counties, even around the United States. Robin established the fire dispatch for all fire departments in the parish, except for the City of Lake Charles. That means at a moment's notice we can talk to any of those agencies, and they'll have full information about what's going on. Robin was instrumental in acquiring and retrofitting the current 911 location. I think it was a telephone company before. It's an excellent building. It's turned out to be a great location for them. Robin also assisted our Emergency Operations Center with every major disaster since he's been there in 1991, and we appreciated that help. The 911 Center dispatches for Public Works after hours. They also dispatch for our office 24 hours a day, 365. And one of the greatest accomplishments that you really haven't heard much about, but our communication district was the first in the United States to receive the gold standard accreditation for communications centers awarded by CLIA, which is a law enforcement accreditation agency. And I can tell you, we travel a good bit. I would put our 911 center up against any in the country. And they are among the best and possibly the best in the United States. Robin, come on up.
appreciate the opportunity. It's been 25 years. I've enjoyed almost every minute of it. And I've worked with a lot of you individually over the years, and we've accomplished a lot. When I came there, we had 8 employees and $60,000. Now I leave with 31 employees and almost $60,000 the way we're going through it this year. $1 million roofs and new phone systems and new computer-aided dispatch systems cost a lot of money. And you've got a good district, leaving you with a good man who'll be announced at the next board meeting. And I appreciate all the effort and all the help and assistance I've had from the police jury over the years. Thank you very much.
Robin, we'd like to present you with this certificate of appreciation presented by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury on this second day of February 2017 to Robert V. Robin Martin, Executive Director, Calcasieu Parish Public Safety Communications District, E911, in recognition and appreciation of 25 years of service to the citizens of Calcasieu Parish. Congratulations and best wishes on your retirement.
You get in here too, buddy.
That was a good picture. Very good. I saw it through your camera.
We'll send you a copy.
Yeah, send me a copy.
Robert, we've got a few jurors that would like to share a few comments with you. My Vice President, Mr. Brame.
Robin, being the liaison for the 911 district, I never really went to the meeting to keep up with y'all, but I did have the opportunity to appoint a couple of board members, Tanya and Andy, and they kind of give me some feedback. So, and sometimes when I find that when I go to board meetings, it's kind of a distraction, so I kind of stay away, but I'm always there when y'all needed me. But just thank you for your service and your time that you've given to the parish. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you, Robin. Really got to know you back here in Hurricane Rita. We spent a lot of quality time together, and you were there to respond. Of course, in 911, communication is the key, and you brought us to the next level of the 21st century communications. And because of that, we are one of the #1 parishes, and we can rank with anybody in the entire nation. But you have to have a good leader, a leader that builds by having good people around him, and you did that. And this parish owes you a debt of gratitude. I just want to say thank you very much for what you've done.
Mr. Landry.
Thank you, President Guidry. Again, every good organization that's successful, and I mean, really, to be the #1 in the country, that's amazing from a small community. I mean, I know we're not that small, but in comparisons, when you start comparing yourself to every county in the United States, I mean, that's thousands of counties. You didn't become #1, and I know you're kind of modest, and you've got a good team, and that's great that you built a good team around you, but I think we all recognize that you've been the driving force behind that department all these years, and we're really proud of you, and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Guillory.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Rob, I just want to thank you for coming out to all my neighborhood watch meetings and getting everybody signed up with shout out and everything. Definitely appreciate you for all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guillory. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Martin, I have heard of the transformation of E911 over the years, and I want you to know that this jury and this parish recognizes that you do have a good team behind you, but your leadership is what helped that transformation, and your leadership is what got us to where we are today. So we do owe you a debt of gratitude, and Calcasieu Parish is a better place because of your dedication. I thank you for that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
President.
Hunter. Mr. Beam, did you have any words that you wanted?
Actually, y'all said it very well. I too, with how I want to, you go back to certain events, and because they stick out more, things like the hurricanes, and there was a lot that didn't end up hitting here, but all the work that has to go in beforehand is just the same, and the professionalism they have there and the competency is unmatched. And from a staff level, we echo the same things you're saying as elected leaders, that without this service and Robin's leadership, it wouldn't go nearly as smooth. So we want to thank you for your work.
Mr. President, I just want to say one more.
I'm
thing.
sorry, Ms. Trimmy.
It's not about your job or how wonderful a job you've done, and everybody has said that. But just your character and as a quality person that always wants to do the best that you can do, and you always have, and you always will, I'm assuming. And just a wonderful person, and your family, your wife. She worked here for many years too, and she was just wonderful. She sat right outside of where Tammy's office is now, and we miss her. We tell her we miss her, but we want y'all to have a wonderful retirement. And just enjoy. God bless you.
Just have to go slow.
We'll get that fixed. That's on us.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmy.
Thank you.
And Robin, again, from all of us, we do appreciate your service. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 5. Take appropriate actions on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 6 new applications and 2 special event permits and recommend they be approved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrew, a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion passed. Item number 6, consideration of approving payments of all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Hunter. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number 7, consideration approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury
Second.
meeting dated January 5th, 2017. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. Forner. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried.
Mr. President, could I
Yes.
ask a
Go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
favor? That, would it be possible to move number 11 up to now prior to number 8?
Motion to move 11 up.
I have a motion by Ms. Sandy and a second by Mr. Latour. We'll go to number 11. You guys will move up. We'll go to number 11.
I would move on 11.
Second.
Okay. Item number 11, consideration of adopting a resolution in support of an application to the U.S. Department of Commerce filed by the Port of Lake Charles for a foreign trade zone 87 sub-zone expansion destination by Westlake Chemical Corporation with adds Axial property sites 4 and 5. I have a motion by Mr. Andrepont and a second by Mr. McMillan. Do we have discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. All right, Mr. Vice President, we're back to number 8. Make sure we bypass 11.
We will.
All right, back to item number 8. Consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report dated January 26, 2017. Mr. Barris.
Thank you, Mr. President. We received a report from Mr. Tim Connor and Mr. Cliff Bruhard regarding the Nelson Road and Hamreed Road roundabout project. Recommended that a resolution be adopted approving the following items related to the Coach Williams Drive Extension project. Number 1, expropriation of property owned by Stream Family Trust LLC. Number 2, expropriation of property owned by Hooks McMahon Family LLC et al. And Stream Family Limited Partnership. Number 3, expropriation of a utility and drainage servitude owned by David A. Abshire. And 4, servitude agreement from Axial LLC. We also recommended that a resolution be adopted approving the act of sale agreement for the Country Club Road and Elliott Road intersection improvement project. And D, advised that Calcasieu Parish was found to be in full compliance by the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development for the 2016 annual review, which will assure the parish's continued participation in the federal bridge replacement program through October 2017. And I move that we accept
Second.
this report.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Brame.
Discussion.
I have discussion. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. On item B3, on the expropriation of utility and drainage servitude on the property owned by Mr. David Abshire, I think we had some worded, some language in there that they were wanting us to basically take some responsibility for DEQ and any of the permit and stuff. I really don't have any problem. One of the things is that the fence has to be up and the gate has to be locked at all time. And Tim, I would direct this to you. Are we gonna be able to make sure that when we put the pipe in the ditch, that we can back that fence up and they will be able to, it's not gonna be a temporary fencing. I think there are stipulations that they have to have a permanent fence. Is that something we can work through?
Mr. McMillan, we'll try to work with the property owner any way we can. I believe it's possible, but that's something I think we're just gonna have to sit down, because I'm not familiar with the gate issue. I am with some other aspects of this, so, but we can do our best to work through that. I think it's certainly possible.
That's the property owner's major concern. He got with Mr. Interpont and myself that there is an edict in there that they have to have it fenced and they have to keep it locked. And yes, I think we can work out the right-of-way issues with no problem if we agree to that. And I think we've almost got to agree to that. We can't leave a
Certainly.
debris field, landfill open.
I mean, certainly it's got to be open at some time during the construction and the moving, but you're probably concerned more about after hours. And we can get into the details of that when we talk further with Mr. Abshire. But I can assure you, we're going to do everything we can to make it work out.
Assurance is kind of a commitment, what I want. I want to make sure that we keep it locked for him, because that's the stipulation that we have to have.
This is something that's new to me, so I mean, I'd like to know more detail before I can give you.
Yeah, and maybe we can go to our legal counsel and he can maybe clear that up for me.
Well, and Mr. McMillan, 10 minutes before we started here today, I've been in contact with Mr. Abshire's attorney. We will try to work this out, and we're on the right track. We definitely don't want to expropriate. It's never the course we want to take. And I will certainly get with Mr. Connor and Mr. Abshire and his counsel, and we'll try to work this out.
The other thing that's very, very important to me is that we don't slow down the building of Coach Williams Road. If we got to do what we got to do to get the fence backed up, stay proactive, stay as fast as we can, because I've got a number of constituents calling me constantly wanting to know how the progress is going, and we are progressing, and this is part of this. I don't want to be slowed down on this, so whatever we have to do to work with the landowners to keep it expedited as quickly as possible is what we need to do. Thank you, Mr. Connors. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
President.
McMillan, for those comments. Mr. Andrew Pont.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo a little bit what Hal just presented to the floor. As visiting with David after I spoke to you today, and he said it's mandatory from DEQ that has to have a fence around it. And then when there's nobody there, the gate has got to be locked. So it's not anything he's requesting, it's what he's mandated to do. So if we're gonna do all that, and I know the road needs to be addressed and has to be widened, but let's don't put the owner in a bind. I mean, I think we can work with him and I know Tim well enough that you are gonna do everything you can to, but it has to be addressed, there's no question about it. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew Pont. Mr. Scott.
I'm not sure who can answer that. What is we talking about, 400 feet? And what kind of fence is there already? It's been a while since I've driven down that road. What kind of fence is already there?
Wooden fence.
It's a wooden privacy fence, and it's probably, what, 400 feet?
I don't know the exact.
The length of the property, whatever that is.
Yeah, about 400 feet.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any other discussion?
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any objection? Motion carried.
Move
Item
on
num-
9.
Item number 9, consideration approving the Agenda Committee report dated January 26, 2017. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number 10, consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the parish legal counsel to file an amicus curiae brief in support of the Cameron Parish Police Jury and the Cameron Parish School Board. Suit number 10-19872.
We do not have a motion yet.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Ms. Latour. We do have a speaker on this item.
Mr. President, members of the jury, my name is Jay Delafield. I'm a lawyer here in Lake Charles that a few have run into over the time. I want to introduce to you Ryan Boriak, who is the parish administrator of Cameron Parish. Sheila Miller, who is the president of the Cameron Parish School Board. I represent both of these entities in connection with this litigation. I'd like them to address to you this evening the reasons for our request, and thank you for having us on your agenda. But your sister parish to the south needs your help.
Thank you, Jay. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Ryan Boryak, 150 Severin Road, Grand Chenier, Louisiana, 70643.
Thank you.
I wish it was my retirement tonight. That sounded pretty good at this point. Without belaboring what we've been discussing since last October, on behalf of the police jury and our residents in Cameron, your favorable consideration of this motion, this resolution, this support is very important to us. As you know, there's a little bit of economic development going on in this area. You're handcuffed just a hair when you don't have a sales tax, and when you have an industrial tax exemption that's put in place for 10-year abatement, which assists these companies. We don't want to do anything to hurt the companies. We're going to do something that's beneficial not only to the company, but to the residents and the small business owners in Cameron Parish. We're very proud of the efforts of where we have gotten to this point. And I have to tell you, getting 10 boards in Cameron to agree on one thing, especially the school board, the sheriff, and the police jury, to all agree unanimously on one issue is very difficult. And I'm most certainly proud of the effort and the time that we've put into this. Hopefully, with support of others, we're only 6,700, but support of others, we can get this moving and put in some infrastructure and improve some quality of life for people at Cameron Parish. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Sheila Miller, 216 W. Miller Road, Grand Chenier, Louisiana, 70643. I've been in the school business for about 35 years, and the last 7 of those 35 years was as a curriculum supervisor, just to tell you a little bit about myself. We jumped on board with the police jury in this endeavor because we're running an $8 million deficit at this time. We have a growing decline in MFP money, and also our ad valorem taxes have been down drastically. We feel like it would have a financial impact on us. We have a growing number of students. It would generate approximately $7 million for the school board, just our share per year. Pilots are nothing new to Cameron Parish. We had a pilot with Chenier after the storm, which generated about $881,000 per year. So it's nothing new to Cameron Parish. Legislature has passed a bill for Cameron Parish to be able to establish a CEA pilot and to enter into these agreements. And with that being said, we know that if the pilot is successful, that our classrooms will be state-of-the-art classrooms, and technology, and in turn would increase our test scores drastically. So, and I'm very proud to say that Cameron Parish this year was improved. We had the second highest improvement in the state of Louisiana. So I'm very proud of that. Even though we're operating in an $8 million deficit, it makes it very difficult. With that being said, I would like for you to consider helping Cameron Parish in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have some discussion, ma'am. Mr. Scott.
Mr. Boryak, maybe you can answer my question. Why is it so important for Calcasieu to sign on it? What does it do for you, for us to sign into this? I'm just curious.
That's a good question, and thank you for asking that, Mr. Scott.
You're welcome.
From our perspective, this is not a Cameron Parish issue. This is not a Southwest Louisiana issue. This is a state of Louisiana issue. This is an economic development related issue that there are several agencies, Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, Louisiana Economic Development. I think from Calcasieu's perspective, you probably have around $40, $50 billion of projected investment that you may be impacted prior to receiving those dedicated ad valorem tax revenues coming from those investments. So when you can move out in front of something and kind of extrapolate the investment from years 11 through 20 and begin receiving those funds up front, It allows you to provide the infrastructure and the investment needs in your individual communities to your residents. And from our perspective, this is something that did, the discussion began amongst a few in Cameron, but what I promise you, Louisiana Economic Development and Louisiana Association of Business and Industry are most certainly watching this issue. So from our perspective, even though Cameron is at the point of discussion right now, make no mistake about it, this is a state issue.
Great explanation, I appreciate it. I'm totally supportive of it. Do you look at asking other parishes that are going through, they're not experiencing the same economics that we are at this time, but St. James Parish, some of the other parishes, they are growing with some of the same issues, so are you looking outside of the parish?
I can tell you what we have done back in September. St. Charles Parish, St. John the Baptist Parish, they do have quite a bit of experience, either in the assessor's office or through their economic development agencies, in dealing with payment in lieu of tax agreements, cooperative endeavor agreements, and now it's moving upriver. Ascension Parish is beginning to pursue a few more of these. We began this effort starting close to home. And for us, you're going to have a lot more of experience with these industrial tax exemptions than maybe some of our other neighboring parishes. And so we began with you. But we have had discussions throughout South Louisiana with parishes who are currently impacted by the industrial tax exemptions and the industry that it facilitates.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Gabb, can you tell me what an amicus curiae is? Is that the correct pronunciation?
It is the correct pronunciation. Amicus brief is what it's usually referred to as. It means that we're not a party to the lawsuit. However, we'd like to be able to at least express let our voice be heard by the court, because our rights might be affected by whatever the court decides.
Okay. And by authorizing this resolution, first of all, it doesn't say who the suit is against. Who is the suit against?
Well, it's the Cameron Parish Police Jury and School Board are the named plaintiffs.
Right.
It's a validation suit from what I understand. And I'll defer to Mr. Delafield as far as the specifics, but it's a validation suit, so it's basically anyone can appear to oppose it. And I don't know exactly who appeared to oppose it in the Cameron Parish suit.
Okay.
A bond validation or cooperative endeavor validation lawsuit is a very peculiar animal. It's not like an ordinary lawsuit. It's a very quick lawsuit. This lawsuit was actually heard by Judge Fontenot on January 3rd of this year. It's going to be heard by the Third Circuit on the 14th of this month. So it's a very quick procedure, and it's designed to determine whether or not these agreements are valid before they're actually executed. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have that validated. Judge Fontenot ruled against us. We've appealed it to the Third Circuit. And if it's approved at the Third Circuit, then we will execute the agreement with Cameron LNG. And what impacts Calcasieu Parish, and thank God that both Brian and Sam agreed to put this on your agenda. You have LNG projects both already here and those that are proposed for this parish. You're in the same boat Cameron Parish is in. Mm-hmm. It's just a question of, is it lawful? Is it something that we can do? We believe it is. There's a specific statute for Cameron Parish only because of the cooperative endeavor agreement I did with Chenier back in 2006. But there's a particular statute dealing with economic development in Louisiana that affects every parish in Louisiana, including Calcasieu. So that's the reason we're asking you to come on board, because you're affected by this ruling just like Cameron Parish is.
Okay. And by authorizing this resolution, are we in effect saying that we agree with the monetary deal that they worked out with the company? We're
taking a much broader approach. We're just asking to file the brief to say our rights might be affected. Not that we want to do one of these in the future. We want to have those rights preserved if we have a chance to give our voice out.
Okay.
We don't want to be on the sidelines, basically. As far as the actual specifics, SCCA, no, we would not really be commenting on those.
Okay. Because I would be uncomfortable without knowing the exact details of the monetary arrangement between Cameron Parish School Board and this company. I'm uncomfortable saying I agree with that or disagree with that. I'm not uncomfortable saying that they have a right to ask for a pilot. And then also, obviously, without getting too deep into it, there are some entities in Cameron that disagree. Were those individuals or organizations invited to speak this evening?
I did not extend an invitation to them. It's certainly been on our agenda. It hasn't been.
Yeah.
It,
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Mr. McMillan.
Ryan, if you come to the microphone, thank you for the job you're doing in Cameron Parish. You're doing a great job. First off, was there a lot of opposition to this? I guess that was kind of where Nick was going. How much opposition are we seeing here?
I'll tell you, we have 12 taxing entities who would sign off on the eventual agreement. 10 of those entities have already fully supported this process, this mechanism to provide a dedicated tax revenue stream for Cameron Parish. One district has tabled their decision for the pending, I guess, legal solution to the document. We have the tax assessor is the only taxing entity who has opposed the agreement. And you know, they will have their own reasons for that opposition. Out of the 57 individuals who voted, who were either elected or appointed to make policy decisions on behalf of their residents and constituents, 53 of those individuals supported it, 1 individual voted against it, 3 individuals abstained. And so across the board, those being recreation districts, water districts, mosquito control, you know, so forth and so on, those individuals have bought in to at least trying to address some issues through this mechanism.
Mr. Delafield, question for you. Are we treading on new ground, or has there been any type of judicial precedents set on this behalf already?
Mr. McMillan, I've been doing pilot agreements since the early 80s. Your Industrial Development Board here in Calcasieu Parish has done a number of pilot agreements with me since the early 80s. In fact, I did the Cooperative Endeavor Agreement with Chenier in Cameron Parish after the storm in 2005. So you're not treading on any new ground here. This is plowed ground, and these pilot agreements are going up and down the Mississippi River right now. There are a number of other parishes throughout the state that are doing the same thing. The governor and LED, Louisiana Economic Development, are supportive of our position.
Thank you. It gives me a really good comfort zone. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
President.
McMillan. Mr. Landry.
Thank you, President Guidry. To put it plainly, the judge is wrong, and y'all are right. I mean, you have the law that is behind y'all. The man's wrong. I'm not saying he's a bad judge. I'm just saying he made a mistake. And I know that at the end of the day, as y'all move forward with this, that'll be proven, and I'm sure you'll be allowed to do your agreement. And without a doubt, I didn't think we were going to have this much discussion on this issue tonight. We need to stand by Cameron Parish, and I absolutely am going to vote that way. Thank you all for being here.
I'm going to go back to Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Gabb, is this something that Cameron Parish brought to us, or did we initiate this?
the Cameron Parish Police Jury and School Board came to us.
Well, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
I
President.
call the question.
Call for question. Any other discussion?
Roll call.
Roll call. Madam Secretary?
Okay, we will start with the A's. Mr. Angelpont?
Yes.
Mr. Barris?
Yes.
Mr. Frame?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Farnum?
Yes.
Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
Mr. Hunter?
Yes.
Mr. Lantry?
Yes.
Mr. Latour?
Yes.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Scott? Mr.
Here,
Scott?
yes.
Mrs. Trimming?
Yes.
And Mr. White?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
All right, motion carry. Thank you guys for coming. We're going to skip number 11. We've already went through number 11. We'll go to number 12. Consideration of adopting a resolution authorizing the renewal of a Microsoft Enterprise Enrollment Agreement with
Move on
Endpoint
12.
Technology
Second.
Sales LLC for various Microsoft products. I have a motion by Mr. Andrepont and a second by Mr. Hunter. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 13.
Move on 13.
Consideration of adopting a resolution approving the submittal of a grant application to the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness for acquisition and/or elevation of flood-prone residential structures in Calcasieu Parish. I have a motion by Mr. McMillan and a second by Mr. White. I apologize,
sorry.
Mr. McMillan.
I apologize.
That was Mr. Scott. I do apologize.
Here.
That's just one. We try not to do it
We're just
again.
gonna thumb it.
Any other discussion?
I'm thumbing it.
Forgive me.
Any objection? Motion carried. Moving on to item number 14. Take appropriate actions on bids received by the parish purchasing agent on January 25th, 2017 for 4 one-half-ton extended cab pickup trucks for use by code enforcement. I have a motion by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item number 15, consideration of
Move on
authorizing the parish
15.
purchasing agent to advertise for
Second.
bids for 4 rail flat cars for use by the Division of Engineering and Public Works. I have a motion by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. White. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion. We do have discussion?
You can, whatever. It's not a discussion. I was going to thank.
You've got the floor, Mr. Barris. You go
Thank you,
right
Mr.
ahead.
President. And I know this seems like just a small little, item here, but I want to thank staff for these, because what one of these cars is for is someone's driveway. It's the bridge replacement initiative, and these people, I mean, they really, we're cutting it close. I mean, they've seen the bridge. It's almost to the point where they weren't going to be able to get to their house. I mean, it's not just a pasture or, somebody's hayfield. This is their driveway. So I appreciate the time and effort that y'all put into this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. Mr. Scott. We do have discussion. Mr. Scott?
Are you using all 4 of them, or is it you having some other places? Mr. Connor, I guess? Or
These rail cars, Mr. Scott, are actually for 2 bridges over laterals, one on Highway 27 that Mr. Barris was talking about, and the other off of Fontenot Road in the Bell City Hayes area. So these rail cars, with the help of engineering and public works, we put over these drainage laterals. These bridges were put in many years ago by the parish, and we are still responsible for maintaining them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Landry?
What was the last thing you said? We're still responsible for maintaining them?
We are responsible for replacing the bridges at this time. The future maintenance of these bridges will be resolved at a later date.
On these particular ones, not on all of them necessarily,
Each bridge, Mr. Landry, you're exactly right, will be handled on a case-by-case basis.
case by case. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't mean to be messing with you or anything, but, so hopefully we'll come to some kind of agreement to address all of these bridges, because I think, aren't there, how many more do we have out there? Another dozen, or?
I don't want to put a number to it, but you are correct when you say we are getting to a very good process where we can address these bridges, look at the history of them, and then move forward with replacement and determining who will maintain that.
And I know you worked hard on it. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. Landry. Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carry. Moving on to item number 16. Take appropriate actions on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts.
Move on 16, all bullets.
I have a motion by Ms. Latour.
You're taking one by
We're going
one.
to take them one by one, okay?
On,
Let me go A.
on A.
Ms.
move-
Danny Joyce Marcantel. We have an appointment for a Ms. Janet Peterson.
Jeanette Peterson Teeter.
Jeanette Peterson Teeter.
Yes, sir. Ms. Marcantel.
I have a motion by Ms. Trimmer.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Hunter. Moving on to B, Ms.
I'd like to move
Renetta
to
Guillory.
Mr. Jason Leonards.
Second.
Have an appointment for Mr. Jason Leonard. I have a motion by Mr. Latour and a second by Mr. Landry. Discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item C, Mr. Irving
I'd like to
Keith
move on C
Thibodeau.
to appoint Mr.
Waterworks
Ricky
District number
Batchelor.
8 of Ward 3. I have a motion by Ms. Latour and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item D, Mr. George Hurd.
Move to
Memorial
reappoint
Hospital
Mr.
Service
George
District.
Hurd.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hunter and a second by Mr. Brame. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Item E, Mr. Cornelius Corny Moon,
Move to
Memorial
reappoint
Hospital
Mr.
Service District.
Cornelius Moon.
I have a motion by Mr. Hunter and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried.
Move to
F.
reappoint George Miller.
Mr. George E. Miller, Waterworks District, 14 of Ward 5. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Items G, Mr.
Move
Haim
to
DeRusso,
reappoint Mr.
Airport
DeRusso.
District
Second.
Number 1. I have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. H, Mr. Nathan Spencer, Gravity
to
Drainage District
reappoint.
Number 6 of Ward 5 and 6. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. I, Mr. J.C. Madison, Gravity
reappoint.
Drainage District Number 6 of Ward 5 and 6. I have a motion by Ms. Trimmy and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried.
On J, can we make a motion for all of these?
But some is
Still got
reappointing,
one.
some is appointing.
Some of them are
There's only
reappointments
two.
and some of them are not, Ms. Trimmy.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, Mr.
You're gonna start at number 6. You'll take number 6 through 24 after that.
Okay,
I got that for you. Keep going to 6.
okay. I'll just go to 6 then.
One
Thank you,
through- one
Jessica.
through 5.
Move to
Okay.
reappoint.
J, Children and Youth Planning Board. I have a motion
Move to
by
reappoint.
Mr. Guillory and a second
Second.
by Mr. Brame. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. Number 1, Ms. Shelley Piper, appointment, Dr. Michelle Jubert.
So move.
I have a motion, Joe Bear, I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Landry.
Are we supposed to start at 6?
No.
No, she wants me to go through and then we'll start at 6. Thank you, Mr. Landry. I have my vice president, he's well on top of it.
Sorry.
Ella Johnson,
I misunderstood.
reappointment.
Re-
I have a
So
motion by
move to
Mr. Guillory
reappoint.
Second.
and a second by Mr. Brame. Item number 3, Mr. Kevin Kirkham.
So move to
I have a motion
reappoint.
by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Landry. Discussion and objection, motion carried. Number 4, Mr.
Move
Michael
to
Graham,
reappoint.
Law Enforcement. I have a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carried. All right, number 5, Miss Bethany Bell Chavez.
Move to appoint.
I have an appointment by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Landry. Any discussion? Any objection?
Bethany Blackson?
Bethany Blackson, Mr. Guillory?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carried.
Moved.
All right, we're going to move, we're going to ask for a motion to take number 6 through 24.
Move. Second.
And then I will read those into the record. Do I have a motion?
Andrew Pontberry.
Yes.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrew Point and a second by Mr. Barish. Let me read those into the record. Starting with number 6, Mr. Harry Fontenot. Number 7, the Honorable Lillian Cotrera. Number 8, the Honorable Guy Bradbury. Number 9, Mr. Bill Summers. Number 10, Ms. Stephanie Kurkowski. Hey, number 11, Ms. Janet Fontenot. Number 12, Lisa Nolan. Number 13, Charmaine Anderson. Number 14, Lisa Bro. Number 15, Amy Dunn. Number 16, Pastor Jeffrey Rolliston. Number 17, Reverend Mel Estes. Number 18, Mr. Julio Gallant. Number 19, Miss Grace Bauer LeBeau. Lubauer. Thank you, Mr. Number 20, Reverend Charlie Williams. Number 21, Pastor Norman Thomas. Number 22, the Honorable W. Mitchell Red. 23, Mr. Dennis, who? Mr. Dennis Scott? Roll call. Madam Secretary, can we? Item number 24,
Definitely.
Mr. Tony Guillory. I have a
Thank you for the
motion
heavy on
and
the
a second on all items. Is there any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, motion carried. Great job. Number 17, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to be forwarded to the family of the late Nola
Gail.
Gay Fisher.
Gail Fisher.
At this time, Ms. Trimmie.
Hey, Mr. McMillan.
Yes, ma'am.
Please give me more than 1 minute on
Oh,
this.
however long you need.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take your time, Ms.
He's been
Trimmie. I'm the
counting me.
president.
He's been doing countdown. I can only have 1 minute, but I need a little extra. Gail Fisher came to Calcasieu Parish to go to McNeese. She lived in Harrisonburg, Louisiana. Still owns a beautiful home there. Across from the courthouse in Harrisonburg. Country girl, but her aunt lived in DeQuincy, and her aunt taught piano and played piano at the church and did things. So she just sort of became one of us. So not only was she a DeQuincy girl, she married a DeQuincy boy, Jimmy Fisher, who happened to be Butch and I's best man at our wedding. And Gail loved everything and everybody, but especially LSU football. She went in any way she could. I mean, she went, if she was in a wheelchair, she was still there. She was a never give up kind of person. And she did play the piano at First Baptist Church, and she did work with the youth. She was in the choir and the orchestra, and played the handbells, which if you've ever heard them, the handbells are special, beautiful. But Gail also is a co-founder of the DeQuincy Railroad Days Festival. She also was president of General Federation of Women's Club, which I was a member for many, many years, and served with as chairman of the City of DeQuincy Centennial Celebration. She was also in the DeQuincy Study Club, which I'm still a member, and we were members together of that club, and also DeQuincy Federated Service League. We started that together. That used to be called Aggressive Women. I just want to let y'all know. That was the name before Federated Service League. And we thought that needed to be changed. But she also did, she was a recipient of the DeQuincy Civic Club, and she was a member of Eastern Star, the Alda chapter. She also had the Calcasieu chapter of the Daughters of American Revolution, and she was very proud of that. And also the DeQuincy Athletic Boosters. She has 4 children. She was also a member of the Rotary and also the West Calcasieu, which she loved, Convention and Visitors Bureau. She served 2 terms there and absolutely loved it. Gail also was the chairman of many elections. She loved politics. And so just to name a few are Lynn Knapp, Sandy Trimmie, Lynn Jones, Willie Mount, John DeRosier, Tony Mancuso, and many, many, many more. But good news is all of those did pretty good. She was wonderful. I'm just telling you. And all of those people that I just mentioned have a different story to tell you about Gail Fisher. Her husband, Jimmy Fisher, I was saying, was one of Butch's best friends, and they both went on to be music majors, Jimmy and Butch, at McNeese, and also played football. Jimmy and Butch roomed with David Pocho. Y'all probably heard of him before. David Pocho? Yeah, he's a pretty good football player. A lot better than Jimmy and Butch. So they went on to different lives. But Gail became DeQuincy Citizen of the Year Award and also the DeQuincy Railroad Festival Parade Marshal in 2013. Let me let you know that she's going to be remembered by her accomplishments and all of her dedicated service. And in her passing, Calcasieu Parish has, especially in our area, but all of Calcasieu Parish, has felt a deep, heartfelt loss from this outstanding friend and person that was a get-her-done girl. So with this, from the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury in regular session convened on the 2nd day of February, that it's done, hereby express our sincere regret of the passing of Nola Gale Fisher. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmie. That was extremely sweet of you to do that. Item number 18.
Well, you need a motion,
I thought-
Ms. Trimmie.
I have a motion by Ms.
Second.
Trimmie and a second by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Objection? Motion carried. Item number 18 is an advised item that adjudicated property will be offered for sale by the Department of Division and Planning and Development on Tuesday, February the 21st, 2017.
One quick thing.
No, you don't need to. Okay, Hal wants to
Okay, I think I have 2 point of personal.
No, just one.
Just one? Mr. McMillan?
I was just gonna go to staff. We are gonna have our state police jury convention coming up, and we're gonna change a meeting, so we might wanna inform the public, that our next meeting is gonna be next Thursday night. And, just wanted to-
Thank you, Hal. Yes.
Mr. McMillan, thank you so much. My vice had already made me aware of that. Thank you for just being a part of what we do, Mr. McMillan.
But you did good. I'm glad you told me.
You are. But back off.
We will be meeting next Thursday. Normally, every second Tuesday of the month, we're actually off, but we will be meeting next Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. President.
We're off every Tuesday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
I just want to
Mr.
thank
Gillum.
staff because I know you all are going to be doing a lot and have put a lot into it. Jessica, I know you're working hard, and I just want to thank you all for everything you all do. Thank you.
Is there any other business for discussion? I'm sorry, Mr. Andrew Point, I've been over here to the left, but I'm coming back to the right. Mr. Andrew Point?
I want equal time.
Yes, sir, by all means.
I don't want to sound like I don't know what's going on, but I don't know what's going on. What are we saying here? The meeting's gonna be when?
Thursday, next Thursday.
Because of
The
convention.
following week is the
Normally-
convention, Francis, so.
Normally, every second Thursday, Mr. Andrew Point, we're actually
I
off.
understand.
February
So
9th.
we're gonna move it up because of the convention, which
Don't
is
want you to
February
get
the
busy
9th.
with the facts. I just asked.
Yes, sir. That's gonna be February 9th.
Okay, very good.
We will be convening.
Now I'm on the same page as the rest.
All right. At this time, I need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by Mr. White and a second by Ms. Trimmie.
Yeah, I got one in.